What happened to the British sweet shop? For decades, the British sweet shop was a kingdom of color, scent, and sound. Glass jars brimming with pear drops and rhubarb and custard sat proudly behind counters, waiting for the eager hands of children armed with pocket money. Striped paper bags, cheerful shopkeepers, and the buzz of choosing your favorites gave these places their magic. Yet, in the modern age, the traditional sweet shop has slipped away from everyday life. So, what happened to the British sweet shop, and why do we still feel nostalgic for its charm? The Golden Age of the British Sweet Shop. The golden years of the British sweet shop began in the 1950s, just after rationing ended. For years during and after the Second World War, sweets were scarce and highly prized. When rationing was lifted in 1953, Britain experienced a sweet revolution. Suddenly, children could buy toffee, sherbet lemons, and licorice all sorts without coupons, sparking an era of pure indulgence. By the 1960s and 70s, every town had at least one sweet shop, often tucked into a corner of the high street or perched on the edge of a housing estate. They were small but vibrant businesses, typically family-run, that thrived on loyal local customers. In those days, the phrase penny sweets really meant something, though by the 1980s, inflation meant not every treat cost a literal penny. The name stuck as shorthand for affordable childhood delights. This golden age wasn't just about sugar, it was about ritual. Children stood on tiptoe to point at jars stacked behind the counter, mesmerized as the shopkeeper scooped out a quarter-pound and slid the sweets into a crinkly paper bag. It was an experience that created lasting memories, and one of the many reasons why UK nostalgia is so tightly tied to the image of the British sweet shop. Rituals, flavors, and childhood magic. What truly defined the traditional sweets of Britain wasn't only the variety, but the performance of buying them. Choosing between pear drops, cola cubes, aniseed balls, and sherbet fountains felt like a ceremony. Some children were loyal to their favorites, while others delighted in experimenting each week. Retro sweets of the era had personalities of their own. Flying saucers, rice paper discs filled with fizzy sherbet, were as much about the experience as the taste. Rhubarb and custard boiled sweets packed a tangy punch, while Black Jacks left your tongue stained. Even simple lollipops carried an aura of excitement when wrapped in a paper twist. For many, these moments were woven into the fabric of daily life. Stopping in after school, spending coins earned from chores, and sharing treats with friends on the way home. Sweet shops helped shape community identity and childhood joy in a way that supermarkets simply couldn't replicate. The rise of the supermarket giants. The decline of the sweet shop began slowly with the supermarket boom of the late 1960s and 70s. Chains like Tesco, Asda, and Sainsbury's were expanding across Britain, offering shoppers everything they needed under one roof. Alongside groceries and household items came large, cheap packs of sweets and chocolates. By the 1980s and 90s, this trend had accelerated. Multi-packs of chocolate bars and big family bags of confectionery offered far better value than a quarter-pound of boiled sweets from the corner shop. Supermarkets had buying power that allowed them to undercut prices, while slick advertising campaigns built strong loyalty around brands like Mars, Cadbury, and Rowntree's. For independent shopkeepers, competing was nearly impossible. Some adapted by diversifying into newsagents or general stores, but many simply closed. This marked one of the first major blows in the history of sweets in the UK, and the decline of old British shops that once seemed untouchable. Woolworths and the pick-and-mix revolution. While supermarkets were undercutting prices, Woolworths changed the entire sweet buying experience with its iconic pick and mix. The concept had been around in Woolworths since the 1950s, but it exploded into a cultural phenomenon during the 1980s and 90s. Woolworths invited customers to scoop their own bags of treats from dazzling displays. Rows of fizzy cola bottles, jelly babies, foam bananas, and sour cherries gave children and adults alike a sense of freedom traditional shops never offered. For a generation growing up in the 80s and 90s, Woolworths became synonymous with sweets. Saturday trips to town weren't complete without filling a bag of pick and mix before heading to the cinema. For many, this was their version of the sweet shop. Colorful, chaotic, and completely irresistible. But Woolworth's collapse in 2009 was symbolic. Its closing doors felt like the final nail in the coffin for high street pick and mix, leaving supermarkets and convenience stores as the main sellers of sweets. Another piece of the British sweet shop's magic seemed lost forever. Health concerns and the sugar debate. Another significant factor in the decline of the sweet shop has been health awareness. From the 1990s onward, concerns about childhood obesity, tooth decay, and poor diets placed sugar in the spotlight. Campaigns from the NHS and schools urged families to cut back on sweets, and stricter guidelines limited what children could buy at school tuck shops. For traditional sweets, many of which were sticky, boiled, or sugar-heavy, this was devastating. Treats that once filled striped bags became occasional indulgences instead of daily rituals. Parents began steering children toward healthier snacks like fruit bars or cereal snacks, reducing demand for old-fashioned retro sweets. This shift didn't erase sweet shops, but it forced them into a niche market. They became less about everyday childhood stops and more about nostalgia, novelty, and indulgence. The struggles of the high street. The plight of the British high street is well documented, and sweet shops have been among its casualties. Rising rents, business rates, and the draw of out-of-town retail parks left independent shopkeepers with dwindling foot traffic. Online shopping finished the job, giving customers cheaper, faster access to snacks and gifts. In towns where sweet shops once dotted every corner, many now survive only in tourist areas or wealthy neighborhoods. Even thriving towns often have just one or two dedicated retro sweet shops, operating more as boutique experiences than everyday stores. The decline of old British shops is tied closely to this larger retail collapse. As butchers' shops, greengrocers, and toy shops faded, sweet shops followed. The revival of nostalgia and retro sweets. Yet, despite decline, nostalgia has sparked a revival. Across Britain, especially in seaside resorts like Scarborough, Brighton, and Whitby, traditional sweet shops have been reborn. Decorated with vintage signage and shelves stacked with jars, these shops sell more than sugar. They sell UK nostalgia. Retro sweets like sherbet fountains, licorice all sorts, and pear drops are marketed as part of Britain's heritage. Parents and grandparents bring children to show them the magic of how it used to be. Tourists buy bags of retro sweets as souvenirs, linking them to memories of British seaside holidays. Online gifting has also kept the tradition alive. Hampers of retro sweets from the 80s or jars labeled Granddad's Favorites are popular presents, proving that the memory of sweet shops remains as powerful as ever. From local counters to online revival. In the digital era, the British sweet shop has taken on a surprising new form. Online. Dozens of websites now specialize in retro sweets, selling themed collections that capture the excitement of the past. From bulk orders of drumsticks and fruit salads to decade boxes filled with classics, the online market keeps traditional sweets alive. Unlike the corner shop, these websites don't rely on footfall or high street rents. Instead, they tap into nostalgia on a national scale, reaching people who no longer have a local sweet shop nearby. For many, ordering a box of retro sweets online is a way of reliving childhood memories from afar. In this way, the British sweet shop has transformed rather than vanished. It exists less as an everyday staple and more as a curated experience, whether through heritage shops in seaside towns or digital retailers shipping retro delights across the country. The British sweet shop has shifted from daily necessity to nostalgic treasure. Supermarkets, Woolworths, health campaigns, and high street struggles reshaped its place in British life. Yet, through retro revivals and online stores, the charm of cola cubes, sherbet fountains, and pear drops lives on. The sweet shop may evolve, but it never truly disappears. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.